The idea really is that everything you do can be done from a lighter, freer state of mind. Stop dividing life into work and play. Treat all of it as play. Don't convince yourself that you must approach every moment with grim seriousness. We live in a culture where nearly everyone secretly believes there's something fundamentally wrong with them. People think they should be more focused, less emotional, more intelligent, less impulsive, more spiritual, less fragile, constantly tweaking, correcting, improving. So they chase some idealized future version of themselves, always imagining that just ahead they will finally become good enough. But I want to propose something that may sound almost rebellious. There is nothing wrong with you, nothing at all. Your existence, this breath, this moment, this awareness of being is already complete. Not perfect in the neat, moral, or proper sense, but perfect the way fire flickers, or a tree bends, or a galaxy turns in the endless dark. You are not standing outside nature, judging it or watching from afar. You are nature, as much as tides, stars, wind, or rain. Your thoughts, your laughter, your pain, your confusion, all of it is as natural as waves forming on the surface of a lake or thunder rolling across the sky. You don't have to earn your place in the universe. You already belong. You already are one of its rare, impossible wonders. That is simply the truth of what you are. One of the most remarkable insights, and it's not mystical or religious but plain fact, is this: you didn't enter the world, you grew out of it. Just as apple trees produce apples, the universe produces people, and you are one of its creations. You're not a visitor here, wandering through unfamiliar territory. You are this world, its awareness, its imagination, its curiosity about itself. Yet most of us were taught to feel separate, as if we're tiny egos locked inside a skin bag, gazing out at a world out there, full of strangers and objects. That separation is an illusion created by habits of thinking and naming. In truth, there is no boundary where you end and the world begins. You're as inseparable from it as a wave is from the sea. Look at a flame. It has no solid outline. It's movement, transformation, a constant unfolding. You are the same, not a fixed thing, but a living process, a verb pretending to be a noun, a field of thoughts, sensations, memories, shimmering and shifting like reflections on water. When you were born, the universe didn't slip up. It wasn't trying to test you, repair you, or sculpt you into something better. It expressed itself through you and continues to do so in every moment you exist. The universe wasn't doing something to you. It was speaking through you. And what a strange, beautiful, unrepeatable expression you turned out to be. No one else carries your specific rhythm, your tone of voice, your way of filling a room with laughter or silence. That uniqueness isn't a glitch. It's a kind of cosmic artistry, spontaneous, effortless, intentional in a way beyond planning. Yet somewhere along the way, we got confused. As children, we were trained to tame our own nature, to conform, to strive, to become someone according to a script we never wrote. And slowly, we swallowed the deepest illusion that we are incomplete, unfinished, not enough as we are, that we must constantly transform instead of simply exist. But tell me, have you ever watched a flower force itself to bloom? Have you ever seen a tree rush toward the sky? They unfold the way breathing happens, naturally, silently, without apology. You are no different. You are a continuation of nature itself, revealing and discovering itself through your life. You are not a puzzle to fix or a project to polish. You are a cosmic occurrence, as inevitable, as wondrous, and as necessary as a star burning in the night. Look again, not with analysis, but with presence. And maybe, just maybe, you'll start to notice the quiet miracle you've always been. Of course, when someone says there's nothing wrong with you, the mind pulls back. It brings up failures, regrets, guilt, habits, shame, a whole museum of self-criticism. But even that is part of the dance. It's all the movement of life discovering itself. From childhood, we inherit a story that life is an exam, that we must prove ourselves to God, to society, to our parents, to the mirror. So we become performers in the theater of self-improvement, constantly upgrading, refining, chasing, as if life were a staircase to climb, not a mystery to participate in. But what if that entire narrative rests on a misunderstanding? The meaning of life is simply to live, so clear, so immediate, so obvious, and yet nearly everyone runs around in panic, convinced they must accomplish something beyond their own existence. Try this. Close your eyes and notice the pure sensation of being alive, the presence that exists before any thought, before any judgment. That is you, not your stories, not your fears, not your ambitions, the raw aliveness underneath everything. What could possibly be wrong with that? Look at the sky. Clouds don't arrange themselves neatly. They drift, they scatter, they gather, they dissolve. We never accuse a wave of breaking too soon or a tree of growing at the wrong angle. Nature is never judged except when it shows up as a human being. Somehow we decided we are the exception, that we must justify existing, that we must earn permission to be. That belief is the seed of suffering, the root illusion. Your so-called imperfections aren't flaws. They're the texture of your particular song. You don't have to prove yourself worthy of life. You are life, taking form for a brief moment. Just as fire dances, as water moves, as wind shifts, your very desire to grow, to heal, to be spiritual is already part of the unfolding. It's like the ocean trying to become wet, or sunlight struggling to shine. Entirely unnecessary. You are already the thing you're trying to become. And even that, the doubt, the confusion, the trying, is permitted. So instead of sprinting towards some polished, imaginary version of yourself, what if you simply paused and noticed the one who is here already, not fixing, not editing, not striving, just witnessing? There has never been anything fundamentally wrong with you. The only thing that ever claimed otherwise was a passing thought. And you are not the thought. You are the quiet space behind it, the open sky in which thoughts appear and fade. When this becomes clear, not as an idea, but as something felt directly, a soft loosening begins inside. And in that softening, you remember something ancient, that you are part of nature, wild, unfinished, expansive, and exquisitely alive. When I say you don't need to do anything, I don't mean to sit stiff and unmoving like a rock. I mean something subtler. You don't need to force yourself into being what you already are. You don't push the river, you let it carry you. Because the river is flowing on its own. Life moves through you the same way birds sing, not to impress, not to prove anything, but because singing is their nature. Meaning, purpose, direction. They arise naturally, the way a breeze arrives or a melody hums itself into the air. Not through pressure, but through allowing. This is what the Taoists called effortless action. Not laziness, not apathy, but the art of going with the current rather than battling it. And when you find that rhythm, The moment you're no longer doing life but being life, the real dance begins. Here lies a delightful paradox. Most people spend their entire lives trying to be themselves. But the second you try, the moment you reach for authenticity, like a product on a shelf, it slips away. Your true self isn't something you grab, it's something you relax into. Trying to be spontaneous is like trying to fall asleep on command. The effort itself blocks the miracle. We get tangled in questions. Am I healing? Am I authentic? Am I doing it right? And we end up missing the very thing we're looking for, like someone chasing their own shadow around a room. There's nothing wrong with the chase. It has a kind of innocent comedy to it. The ego polishing itself endlessly, sanding and refining as if it were a stone in a river. Eventually, though, you laugh, because you realize that the one doing all the fixing isn't even necessary. It's all cosmic theater. You don't have to become yourself. You're already here, in your quirks, your stillness, your breath, your beautiful imperfection. Authenticity is what remains after you stop pretending. That is freedom. But to taste real freedom, we have to notice something strange. The identity you carry wasn't crafted by you. It was handed to you, built from comments, expectations, glances, a mirror made from other people's thoughts. Since childhood, you were fed instructions, who you should be, what earns acceptance, what is lovable, what is forbidden. Slowly, you stitched yourself together from borrowed ideas, a patchwork made of parents, teachers, religions, culture. And somewhere along the road, maybe at 20, maybe at 50, a quiet exhaustion sets in, not in the body, but in the soul. You feel as though you've worn someone else's clothes for so long that you've forgotten the shape of your own skin. That flicker of rebellion is the beginning of awakening, a whisper that the person you've been performing isn't the one who's actually alive inside. The danger is when you fully believe your own role. The role is useful, but it's not you. You are the consciousness playing the part. You are the actor, not the mask. Yet society trains us to confuse the costume with the being. We become the good girl, the strong man, the productive adult, and forget that we are also storms, poems, galaxies in motion. So when people say, be yourself, they usually mean, be the version of you that makes us comfortable. But that is not freedom. That is still performance. The real task is not to destroy the mask, but to see through it. To understand it as a costume you can set down or put on playfully, like a child at a masquerade. Because the one underneath, the one who doesn't need to impress, who doesn't beg for approval, who isn't trying to be wise or perfect, that is your true self, and it has been quietly waiting for you all along. The one within you, the quiet witness, the breath of awareness behind every story, was never damaged, never lacking, never in need of repair. It only needed to be remembered. So what remains when you stop identifying with the voice in your head, the roles you've performed, the identity you've spent years protecting? What is left when all that falls away? Silence, a vast inner space where thoughts appear, drift, and dissolve, the stillness beneath the constant motion. Awakening isn't about acquiring anything new. It's not a collection of spiritual trophies or a perfected personality. It's the opposite, a shedding, a clearing, a gentle undoing, like a pond becoming transparent the moment the stirring stops. Clarity doesn't demand effort. It asks for stillness, the willingness to let the mud settle on its own. But silence intimidates us. For in silence, the ego cannot maintain its narrative. And without noise, its grip begins to loosen. Yet that is exactly where your true essence has been waiting. not in the struggle, but in the letting go. The real you is found not by thinking more, but by thinking less. By peering inward, not with judgment, but with curiosity. In that soft noticing, you begin to sense it. A hum in the center of your being, a spaciousness untouched by striving, a presence that asks for nothing, pure, unconditional, whole. How do you live from such a place, free from grasping and self-correction? Look at the sky. It doesn't cling to clouds, argue with storms, or chase the sun. It allows everything to move through, and you can live just like that if you loosen your grip on the story you tell about yourself. No need to constantly revise, improve, or perfect. Because once you recognize you are the sky and not the passing weather, life becomes lighter. You begin to trust life, not because you have solved it, but because you no longer insist on solving it. There is a rhythm beneath the surface of things, a timing that isn't tied to clocks, but to the heart. When you soften your effort, you can finally hear it. And here lies the great irony. The moment you stop trying to live life correctly, you start living it authentically. More wonder, less control, more play, less proving. Trees don't exert themselves to be trees. Waves don't try to crash the right way. They express their nature effortlessly. And so do you. Let yourself be lived. Let life move through you without resistance, because you are like that, and that is already enough. And so we return to the beginning. There is nothing wrong with you, not as a comforting phrase, but as a liberating, radical truth. You are not a broken object seeking repairs. You are not a spiritual project awaiting completion. You are an unfolding mystery, a ripple in infinity, a momentary song in the grand stillness. When you look at yourself not through judgment or insecurity, but the way you look at fire or clouds or galaxies, you realize you were never separate, never too little, never too much. You were always simply yourself, not perfect, but whole, not flawless, but complete. All that remains is to drop the disguise, breathe deeply, and simply exist. Because the moment you stop chasing a future version of yourself, you discover you've been home the entire time. Not in success, not in approval, but in your own quiet presence, in the sacred simplicity of being alive. And that in itself is more than enough. And when you finally settle into that quiet miracle of simply being, something unexpected begins to unfold. Life, which once felt heavy and demanding, starts to soften around the edges. The world doesn't necessarily change, but the one who is experiencing it does. You begin to move through your days with a different quality, not the frantic pushing of someone trying to earn existence, but the gentle steadiness of someone who knows they already belong. This shift is subtle, almost invisible at first. You notice it in small moments, a breath that feels deeper, a thought that loses its grip, a tension that dissolves without being solved. And beneath it all, a sense of trust begins to take root. Trust not in circumstances, but in life itself. Trust in your own unfolding, even when you don't understand it. Trust that you are carried by something larger than your fears. You start to realize that the very things you once tried to fix were never obstacles. They were invitations. Each doubt, each struggle, each contradiction in you was pointing toward the same truth, the truth that you are not meant to be perfect. You are meant to be real. And realness is not neat. It is not symmetrical. It is not polished. It is alive. To be real is to be open, to feel deeply, to allow life to move through you in whatever form it takes. To be real is to stop performing and to start participating. not from a script, but from presence. And suddenly the world becomes less of a battlefield and more of a conversation. Life is not something attacking you or demanding from you. It is something speaking to you. Every moment says, "Come closer, see what is here." Every emotion whispers, "Let me pass through." Every experience asks, "Will you meet me without resistance?" You begin to understand that freedom is not the absence of limitation, but the absence of inner conflict. Freedom is not having life go your way. It is no longer needing to fight its way. And from that freedom, a new kind of strength arises, not the hardened strength of defense, but the flexible strength of openness. You become like bamboo, bending, never breaking. You become like water, soft yet unstoppable. You become like wind, invisible yet profoundly felt. The world responds differently to someone who no longer fights themselves. Opportunities begin to appear where once you saw only walls. Connections deepen where once there was only performance. Creativity emerges where once there was self-doubt. Life meets you at the level of your openness. The more you allow, the more you receive. And you start to notice a simple but transformative truth. That meaning does not need to be created. It naturally arises when you stop chasing it. When you stop running from yourself, life reveals itself in the most ordinary places. Meaning shows up in the taste of your morning tea, in the warmth of sunlight on your skin, in the way your breath expands your chest. You realize that your existence itself is proof of your worthiness. You didn't create your heartbeat. You didn't design your lungs. You didn't program your consciousness. Yet here you are, breathing, aware, alive. How could something so effortless be a mistake? And so you begin to let yourself be exactly as you are, not as resignation, but as reverence. You discover that when you stop trying to shape your life into an ideal, it shapes itself into something honest and beautiful. You realize that the most sacred act is simply to meet each moment with presence. This is the beginning of a new way of living. A life guided not by fear but by awareness, not by striving but by surrender, not by perfection but by authenticity. And as you walk through the world with this new understanding, something extraordinary happens. Your presence becomes a quiet medicine. People feel safe around you without knowing why. They feel seen, not because you try to see them, but because you no longer hide from yourself. You become a reminder, a living demonstration of what it means to be human without apology, what it means to breathe without justification, what it means to exist without permission. And that is the greatest gift you could ever offer the world. Not a perfected version of yourself, but a true one. A human being who has remembered their own aliveness, and in doing so, reminds others of theirs.